Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big League Dreaming, the podcast, a show about baseball, dreams, and family. I'm John Gonzalez, the dad, and if you're new to the show, it's a dad and his three sons talking about the game they love. And yes, I was not on last week's show, and Ty called me out. I was pouting over the Tigers' losing streak, 12 of 13, but they turned it around. They won today, so I'm back with it. No, that's not why. That's not why I didn't come on. But Ty, you had a good excuse because it's been rough watching the Tigers this collapse that none of us expected. But let's introduce the son. Speaking of Ty, it's son number 2. He is our resident Mets fan. I think they're in first place still. Ty, how you doing over there in West Michigan?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yep, they're still in first place. They're hanging on, right ahead of the Phillies. They kind of went on a little losing streak like the Tigers too, but they're going on a winning streak now and looking good. We had them on during dinner, and they've won the last few games. So yeah, everything's great here.
Everything is great there. Son number 1 is in Charlotte, North Carolina. He is our resident Mariners fan. And Zach, I'm not happy with you because once the Tigers played the Mariners, it's been like losing ways.
Yeah, in our Mariners group chat, it's like, did we break the Detroit tie?
Yes.
Yeah, it's trade deadline season. That's really exciting. Mariners have traded for Josh Naylor, so they have an everyday first baseman now. That's exciting. I know they're going to add hopefully 1 or 2 more pieces. We'll see what they do. I watched the entire Hall of Fame induction ceremony today. That was super cool to see Ichiro be the first Japanese player inducted. His speech was so perfect. It was so Ichiro. All the speeches were very good. If you're a baseball fan, I highly recommend giving that a watch because it's super cool to see so much history and all the guys behind him.
I didn't get a chance to watch the speeches because I was busy doing some work. I actually have to work on a Sunday today, but we recorded this, by the way, Sunday, July 27. But the headline I caught with Ichiro, did he really say, Zach, that he never heard of Seattle or didn't know where Seattle was when he got signed?
No, what he said was after he went to the Yankees, he did, I think, 2 years with the Yankees, and then he was a free agent. He signed with the Miami Marlins.
Okay.
Being in Japan, like, obviously know Seattle. To get to the U.S., you kind of connect through Seattle coming from Japan. And everybody knows the Yankees because they're,
The Yankees.
Yankees. But when the Marlins reached out to him, like, hey, we want to offer you this free agent 1-year deal, he's like, who are the Marlins? So that's what he said.
Okay. That makes sense. Well, cool. I have to go back and watch them. Like you said, they're always very inspiring. Some of them unexpectedly so. You're like, oh, this is going to be a bore. And then all of a sudden you're really tears are rolling down your eyes. You're like, oh my gosh, or coming out of your eyes, rolling down your cheeks. Enough about. We've got 2 guests today, and this is amazing because we only had 1 today, so now we got 2 for the price of 1. Big League Dreaming, like I said, is a podcast with a dad and his sons, and we have a dad with his son today. So let's introduce the dad, Steve Merriman. I don't even know where you're based at these days. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great. I'm here in Hudsonville, Michigan. So just I've been we had a week vacation given to us this year by the organization for all the coaches. And so I'm just finishing up my week vacation.
Good for you. And then we have, of course, the big news of the day. But the reason we reached out, Zach's like, hey, did you see that Troy Merriman's going to be the head coach at Tiffin University? And I'm like, little Troy Merriman that he was running around. The last time we saw him, he was in the Dominican with us. He was running around there like on the baseball diamonds. And all of a sudden you're an adult now. Troy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Where are you based out of these days? Ohio?
Yep, Ohio. My wife and kids and I live in Findlay, Ohio, which is about 30 minutes from Tiffin. So we're staying here in Findlay. I'll make the commute every day into Tiffin. It's not too bad of a drive.
And it's not far from Michigan either, so that's great.
Yeah, it's a good spot. It's been a good location for us.
Well, a lot to talk to both of you. Our families go back a long way. Zach, I mentioned the Dominican, but before we go down that memory lane with Coach Merriman, the older Coach Merriman, is we've got to bring out the big guns right away. I think, Zach, you remember this. Ty might not remember this, that Steve Merriman and your mom went to high school together.
I do remember that, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, good old Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Fire up Chips.
Fire up Chips. Mount Pleasant
There we
Oilers
go.
right across the street to Chippewa land.
That's right. And the high school is right, like you said, right across the street, right? And did you ever think, Steve, that playing baseball at Mount Pleasant High School would leave you. You've had an incredible career, and I know we're going to talk a lot about Troy's accomplishments here, but you've done a little bit of everything. We're going to talk about the Dominican, but you coach professional sports. You've done so much in your career. Do you reflect back saying, I'm just a kid from Mount Pleasant,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times when I sit back and look at it and say, did I really do that? Did I really get to do that? So it's been a crazy journey. It's never a straight line. And anytime there's something that you want to achieve and do, it has its zigs and zags, and you know, you have to be willing to take some of those and know that there's some other things that can come out on the other end of it. But it doesn't go without making sure that you have good people with you. And obviously my wife, Sue, has been unbelievable. We'll have our 33rd wedding anniversary here in a few weeks. And then obviously, Troy here and his two sisters, Trish and Tracy, they were a big part of what we've always done. So it has a lot of great moments to it, a lot of great memories to them. And those are the things you focus on. So, but it's been fun.
Well, I think Steve too. Like, I'm glad you mentioned your wife and your two daughters, because when you watch like major league players making their debut, or you watch the draft, and they're always surrounded by family, right? And it's like a family dream, but you forget that quickly because baseball's such it's driven on statistics, it's just driven on performance, and you don't see maybe the mom in the stands for every game, or the dad in the stands, or the uncle or the aunt, right? Or siblings. You just see them as professional athletes. But you've been around the game so long that this is a very personal game for the whole family.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Sue on the way back from Traverse City. We were up there for most of the week vacation, and was talking about the accomplishment that Rich Hill had this past week, right? Like, he pitched for his 15th major league team. He is 45 or 46, and he has now set a Major League Baseball record pitching for 14 of the 30 major league teams. And I was his pitching coach at the University of Michigan when he got drafted in 2002. So we laughed together when we talked about it a little bit, but what an incredible journey for him. But it doesn't go without the family being such a big part of what happens, all the moves that get made and all the things that happen.
Troy, what was it like growing up, around Steve Merriman? I mean, you probably loved baseball from day one, like my sons, Zach, Ty, and Zane, loving baseball, and not because we forced it down your throats. That's just what we did as a family, right?
Yeah, 100%. My dad could probably agree with this. I actually liked basketball when I was really young. That was probably one of my favorite sports, honestly, when I was young. But yeah, baseball was always something that I loved and was fortunate to be able to share with dad. We spent a lot of time at the field and growing up and getting to see some really cool things and experience a lot of things that most people don't get to experience. Was certainly a pretty cool way to grow up. So yeah, it was pretty early on that I knew that baseball was certainly going to be something that I wanted to pursue in my future as a player and then as a coach as well.
Well, one thing I'm curious to ask you about, because I know Steve and I actually talked about this. You might not remember, like, having these conversations about life and baseball, because Steve and I have a lot in common. Your dad and I have a lot in common. We're faithful men. We love our spouses, and we love the game, right? So it's that kind of thing where we're driven by family. And I remember asking him, like, how hard is it on the family to be away from everything? So do you remember your dad, like, being gone these long stretches, going like, geez, I wish he was just a normal dad?
Yeah, I mean there's certainly some of those moments for sure. I think when we were young, we got to go spend a lot of time with him in the summers and whatnot. And then as we got older and were more involved in sports, it was a little bit harder. So, he wasn't around for some summer stuff and all that. But, it was a fun trade-off for me to get to, be growing up in the game and get to, meet some really cool people. So, but yeah, there were definitely some times where having a normal dad might have been fun too. Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't trade anything for the things I got to experience. I think it definitely shaped me and helped me out in my career.
Well, I know Zach has a bunch of questions, but before he goes, I'm going to throw it to Ty, because, Ty, I think I sent you the text of Coach Merriman, the older one, Steve, doesn't get old. I sent you a text of like his itinerary, like where he's been, right? And you were like, "Holy cow!" Right? I mean,
Yeah.
from being, at Central Michigan University as a student, and then just going through the major leagues, the minor leagues, college coaching. Ty, what stuck out from you with his resume?
Yeah, so I mean, just seeing the like kind of what you were saying earlier, Steve, like it's a lot of zigs and zags, and it's been a journey. Like just seeing the amount of different things and teams you've worked for is really cool. And I like that you mentioned Rich Hill earlier. 14 different teams it's kind of like like you pulled it up and it's like, oh my gosh, what team haven't you coached for? A question I have for you though is you mentioned Rich Hill. Is there like a guy that stands out to you that maybe made like a huge leap like when you were coaching them, like someone that might not have started off like very great that just made tremendous gains throughout coaching them? Like what does anyone stick out like that? And if they do, like what they do differently?
I would probably have to say Brian Bannister. So if you know who
Okay,
Brian
yeah,
Bannister is,
Mets, right?
well, yeah. And Brian Bannister was with the Boston Red Sox as their director of pitching when they ended up finally winning a World Series. He was in San Francisco with the big league club when I was with the big league club in Colorado with the Rockies. And so now he is the director of pitching for the White Sox. So I'll never forget, like he was basically, so we went to USC, was a position player at USC. Dad, obviously, a major league pitcher, a pretty good one. And he started pitching at the end of his college career, got drafted. He was in high A at the time and basically a fastball, curveball, semi changeup guy. And really had a discussion about needing something for left-handed hitters. And he worked on a cutter. He went back to the season after being with me because at that time I was the rehab pitching coordinator. I think I was probably the first rehab pitching coordinator in all of Major League Baseball. So this would have been like 2005 in that area. And he goes back to the team, 6 outings, he just gets hammered, like beat up. And then after about the 6th start, things started to click with the cutter. He ended up pitching in the Arizona Fall League. And the next year, so that would have been 05. In 06, I'm with the big league club all through spring training, and we needed a 5th starter. And that was when Aaron Heilman had been our bullpen guy with the Mets, who was a Notre Dame kid. And Aaron Heilman was a really good setup guy for the Mets at that time. And he wanted the starting spot. Well, he was battling with Brian Bannister, and Banny ended up winning it. And I would say that for a guy who was not a power guy, he wasn't at that time, we're not talking about visit to like all the guys that I have pretty much now in the Rays system in the minor leagues, but he knew how to pitch. And the strides that he made and overcame several things to be able to get to that point, and had a pretty decent major league career, by the way. So that guy stands out in my mind because he was just never going to get beat. He and I would play Sudoku like crazy, and he was never going to get beat. And that's just the mentality that the guy had.
All right, Zach.
Yeah, Sudoku. Are you like going on a stopwatch or?
Yeah, really, it was about how quickly you could get something done, and he won all the time. Like it was not even close. He'd be a 2-minute guy, and I'm still pecking away with about 6 left at 6 minutes. So,
Well, Troy, I want to ask you about Tiffin. I know you played at Finley. I know you're assistant coach there for a few years, and now this is your first head coaching gig, right?
It is. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Great achievement. And that first head coaching gig is always going to be close to your heart, no matter where your career goes on from here. And maybe it's always at Tiffin, or maybe it's a different spot every single year, like your dad wants to do. But, just like with your dad having so many networking, coaching connections, I'm sure you had plenty of opportunities to coach at different places around the country. Kind of what what sold the deal? Why Tiffin? I suppose it's close for your family and whatnot, but brag on Tiffin for a little bit for us and how excited you are with your new role.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I mean, actually the last really, 16 months have been pretty crazy. So I actually got out of baseball for the last year, the last calendar year. I was working at a company here in Findlay. It was a good time for my family with where our kids were at and everything to step away for a little bit. And I mean, ultimately, I always wanted to be a head coach. I had a couple of interviews throughout the years to be a head coach, and never worked out. And Tiffin honestly was always a place that I kind of looked at just being in this area. The facilities there are incredible. The support that we get from our administration and from the school to provide a good experience for the players is huge. And obviously the proximity to where we live now was something that was interesting. My wife's family is from the Sandusky area, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from here. So that was kind of a middle ground place that we thought maybe we could end up no matter if I was coaching there or not. Just because if I was still working at the place in Findlay, it'd be a short commute for my wife to get to her family and all that. So Tiffin's always been a place that I've looked at kind of in that, with that interest if that ever came about. And I'm super thankful that it came about, and I could be more excited to start my head coaching career at Tiffin here in about a month. So it's been an exciting couple of weeks, that's for sure.
Troy, is that Division Two?
So yeah, it's in the same conference as University of Findlay where I played and coached in the Great Midwest Athletic Conference. So mostly Ohio, a couple Michigan, and then Kentucky has a couple schools as well. So pretty Midwest based conference.
And you plan to be there at least a season or two? I mean, like your dad,
Yeah, no, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty big on planting roots, and being somewhere that I love, and something that I feel like, you always think about, especially when you're a young coach, is thinking about what's next. And I think something that I've always done pretty well is try to be pretty present in my spot and just kind of let everything take care of itself, not get too worried about anything else. So, as of right now, this is where I'm going to be, and this is where I plan to be, and I'm really excited about.
well, like Zach said, congratulations again, folks. You are listening to Big League Dreaming, the podcast, a show about baseball, dreams, and family. You got the Gonzalez family and the Merriman family talking about baseball. The Mariners, the Merriman family, obviously have a lot of years of experience through different levels. Just so you guys know, the Merrimans. Zach is working in the press box over at the AAA Charlotte Knights. So he
Nice.
follows up on baseball. We often talk about his experience at the Charlotte Knights. Zane, the youngest one, or the middle one. Oh, wait, the youngest one. I don't even know the order of my own kids. Zane, the youngest one, is the pitching coach, associate head coach, and a recruiting coordinator at Indiana University at South Bend, an NAIA school. So we will talk about his season quite a bit on the podcast. And Ty coached high school baseball after his playing career and said, "Coaching's not for me," right, Ty?
Yep, exactly. That's how it went. That's how it went for me. Once I saw some of the kids doing things, I wanted to kind of say things I couldn't say as a coach as I could as a player. It didn't really work out for me.
That's awesome.
Well, we mentioned it a little earlier in the podcast about the connection to the Dominican. So, Zach, you want to tell the story a little bit, or do you want Mr. Merriman to kind of talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, that was 2006 going into 2007. I was fortunate enough to join the U.S. Baseball Stars, is what we were called. And that winter, it was over Christmas break. We took a week and we went down to Santo Domingo and played against some of the academy teams down there for a week. And it was just such an unbelievable experience. And Coach Merriman was one of the point people for that whole organization, I guess. I don't know, the whole shebang, right? And we
Yeah.
had tons of teams down there. It was super fun. I'll never forget it. I have a lot of great memories of playing against those kids and just like seeing their passion and how much they wanted it and how many questions they would ask us at all times. And the whole atmosphere of everything down there was completely different than it is back home. So definitely blessed to have that experience and thank you, Coach Merriman, for making that happen for me for sure, and Dad for making that happen financially.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have to tell the story behind that some other day. But Steve, how many years did you do that? Because I know that it didn't last much longer after Zach's experience. But tell us more about it. I know that your wife Sue was heavily involved, in making it all happen. You had some other people around you. Tell us how that all started, and what was the goal?
Yeah, I think we originally started talking about doing something because I received a phone call at the University of Michigan the first time I was coaching there from Belgium's Olympic development coach, and asked if there were any American teams that I knew of that could come over and help the Belgian Olympic development players prepare for European championships. It got me thinking. I mean, I was a typical idiot, American, thinking, oh, how good could baseball be in Europe? I mean, they're not very good, and baseball is only in the United States, and da 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 da. And I started diving in, talking to different people, meeting different people in coaching clinics and national clinics and things like that, that there was a pretty big contingent of people that were involved in European baseball. And just me and two other people decided to try to put something together to where we could take some kids and go experience it. And I had done a little bit of research and knew that former President Eisenhower, way back in the 50s or 60s, whenever it was, had formed a company, or had started a company to promote goodwill from the United States to other companies, and it was called People to People. So jumping off of that idea, to try to put together some teams that could go play in Europe. And I think the first year that we went, we ended up taking 4 teams. We went to the Dutch Baseball Week in Holland, not Holland, Michigan, but the Holland, and just saw a lot of major league guys there, coaches and stuff that were really excited about having more American influence coming into Europe for European baseball. And so it ended up probably being a full boat of about 11 years taking teams. Again, originally we started going to Europe, and then just through my coaching through the minor leagues and whatnot, meeting different Dominican players that had academies in the Dominican Republic that were always looking for ways that their kids could continue to play, and especially getting influence with American teams. So that's really kind of why it shifted from Europe. We did go to Australia prior to the 2000 Olympics being in Australia. They utilized our organization to prepare the baseball venues they were going to use for the Olympics in Blacktown. And then also when we went to the Gold Coast, where a couple of teams were going to be, they utilized our program and our organization to help train the people that were going to work at the venue. I remember Chris Chambliss was working in the commissioner's office at the time. He and a bunch of the commissioner's people were there walking around while we were there, and it was it was a great experience. I think, like Zach said, I know for me and my family, it was a tremendous experience for us every year. Even though we did it over Christmas, we never were at home as a family for Christmas for about 10 years. We were in an airport sometimes, so most kids and families, Christmas is always at home or at grandma's and whatever. But for us, it was always about being on that kind of an adventure and sharing that with other people. And it's crazy, but I, in the minor leagues, saw a kid wearing a U.S. Baseball Stars t-shirt on the field. He was a Czech Republic kid that had been drafted by the Reds, and just crazy that happened. But very, very fortunate that we got to do those kind of fun things. So
That's pretty
our
awesome.
kids, Troy doesn't say much. When I was with the Mets, I'm in a meeting, and I mean, I'm sitting next to Mookie Wilson, who is my manager, and Tim Tuffle's sitting there, and Ken Oberkfell, a longtime Cardinals guy, and all these guys are in this room, and Troy peeks his head in, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, Pudge and Bernie Williams want me to go hit with them on the field or something." And I'm like, "Go right ahead, big guy." Because the World Baseball Classic was going to go on,
Yeah.
and that's where Puerto Rico was training at Port St. Lucie, the Mets home field. And Troy's running around with Pudge Rodriguez and Carlos Delgado and Bernie Williams and playing catch with Billy Wagner in the outfield. And it's just like, Strawberry's hanging with Daryl Strawberry one day, and I was so afraid that he was going to ask him about crazy things that Daryl Strawberry was known for. But we just had a whole different kind of family experience with stuff like this.
Troy, do you remember those days well?
I do. Yeah, I do. Actually, when he said that, I chuckled because one of the days I remember too, I was like, "Hey, Dad, is it okay if I have breakfast with Carlos Delgado?" And there was another guy too, and Dad was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And I remember sitting at the table with a couple of those guys. I mean, that was a really cool part too. I mean, at the time, I was pretty young, so I didn't really know how cool that was at the time. I just kind of looked at him as a baseball player, and I thought every baseball player was pretty cool back then. But I mean, a lot of those guys were such good people and treated me super well. And I think that was really fortunate to be a part of that as well with, the guys that my dad was around were always treated me really well and made me feel a part of it, which made the experience even cooler than it already was. So
I know Zach's dying to ask you a question about that.
yeah.
Man. Well, this is being recorded, Dad, so we can't get the good Daryl Strawberry.
That's
That's why I didn't say anything.
I'd say at that point I didn't know anything about Daryl Strawberry. I just knew he was a good baseball player. That was all I knew. So that was all it was.
yeah. Can you imagine that, Ty, though, just being down there like that and just running into those guys and just like hanging out?
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool you got to experience that. Like, I can't even imagine how sweet that was. So, like, did you, like, growing up, like, who are some of your favorite players, Troy? Because, I mean, if you're eating breakfast with Carlos Delgado, how do you even choose a favorite player?
I always joked because I mean, obviously like watched the Tigers quite a bit, but I never really had a favorite team growing up because I just always liked the teams that my dad coached for. Those were always kind of my favorite teams. And then as I got older, I was like, well, I'll pick the Rays. He'll never work for the Rays. And then sure enough, here we are. So, he's following me now, I guess. But I would say, when I was really young, David Wright was one of my favorite players. I got to play catch with him one time Met spring training with Dad, so that was really cool. Carlos Beltran was at the time, like Jose Reyes. Those were all guys that were on the Mets when my dad was there, so I got to see some of those guys up close. I would say those three were kind of the big ones, and then Evan Longoria was somebody I started to really like. I liked a lot of third basemen because that's what I played, so I pretty much just liked all the third basemen. So
Now, Troy, how do you think that's going to help you as a head baseball coach, having all this experience, through your dad's lens and then through your own playing career? How is this going to help you relate to players coming up? Because that's one thing we haven't talked about, which I hope to get to with you, Steve, because you've seen the game change so much. Just talking to Zach, being the pitching expert that he is as well. Knowing the pitching game has changed considerably back from when Zach played and back from when you and I played. But Troy, getting back to you, how is this all this going to help you as a head coach, do you think?
yeah, I mean, I think tremendously, really. I mean, just like somebody from my age being 29, being a head coach, I feel like I've had a lot of baseball experiences that make me feel a lot older probably than I actually am. And so I'm obviously fortunate for that. And I got to, see a lot of different things and, some good and some bad that, I feel like are all things that I can kind of take with me. But yeah, I mean, as far as like how I can kind of relate to players. I mean, obviously I think you do that with the work that you put in and caring about them more so than, what they are on the field and what they produce for you on the field. And so, for me, that's what I got to see with Dad. I mean, players loved playing for him. I feel like every level he's been at, he's always had players still reach out to him. And I think that that's because, he puts in a lot of time, into developing a relationship with them. And that's kind of something that I've taken, as part of my career as well, is to really develop the relationships with the guys. And I think that that's kind of how you kind of earn their respect and, earn their trust and all those things. So I feel like those are kind of some of the things I learned from Dad, being around him a lot and kind of how he operated that I know will definitely help me, being a young first time head coach.
Zach, let's get to the pitching part of it because I know you're dying to ask those questions.
Man. Well, let me ask my other question, Dad, because I had
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Ask whatever you want.
Well, I'm sure you two have talked about this before, coaching together one day. I'm sure that you guys have had those conversations, whether it be collegiately together, professionally together. One of our first guests a few years back on this podcast, we had old Whitecaps hitting coach Scott Dwyer, who's now coaching down in Florida at a D2 school, and his son coaches with him. And we were talking about his relationship with his son, being able to coach every day on the same ball club, and going on to regionals and doing that together has been so special for them. Is that potentially a goal for you guys later on down the road? What are those conversations like? Do you want your dad to be your assistant coach one day? Is that how Steve Merriman's going out? Like,
Yeah, I mean, well, I actually have two GA spots open. I thought maybe he'd apply for one of those, but I'm not sure if that'd work out. No, we've talked about that pretty often. I know that's something that I know Dad talks about a lot that he would love to do. And I think if I could score him as my pitching coach or my bench coach, I'd probably be in a pretty good spot. So I would definitely would be open to that, and I know he would too.
Well, it's funny, Zach, because when your son is playing and going through all that stuff, you always try to let them be their own man and be their own player. And it's harder, I think, to coach your own kid because I think you're going to be harder on your own kid than you are anybody else. And that makes it tougher on them. I'm so excited that he's a head coach at 29, at a D2, and that has, like he said, tremendous facilities. I would love to coach with him, but I want it to be that thing where he is in the spot where that's something that makes sense for him. I always said I wanted to coach with my son, when I was trying to always coach in college. I kept going back to college because I kept thinking, oh, this is going to be a great way for me to get to have my son maybe play where I'm at or be able to coach where I'm at some point. And for me, just God had a different route. I wish it wasn't maybe a zigzaggy, but we don't always get to control that. But I would love to coach with him. I mean, I loved watching him as a player. I always told him when he was younger, "You're my favorite player to watch." That he was my favorite player to watch because I saw instincts. I saw him do things in games. I mean, I remember at 16, you watching him do something that I didn't see many 16-year-old kids do, and that was always fun for me. So coaching with him would be a blast.
stressful too to watch him play, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there were times where I know when he was playing in summer ball out in Virginia that I'm watching on the computer and I'm screaming upstairs. He's getting a knock against somebody. I don't know who it was, but Sue's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Troy just got a hit," and I'm all fired up. Yeah, it's stressful, but not really in the sense that you want him to do well because sports teaches us lessons. And it was always about, as he knows or remembers, after games, it was really more about just, hey, what's your breakdown? Not mine, not my breakdown or what I think. How do you feel about how things went? And, you know, you don't have to say much sometimes as a coach or a dad. Players know. So
Well, I think as a dad, coaching with your son is probably the best gift because you get to watch them not only kind of like take everything you've taught them, right? Because I know I've coached with Zach, at some travel games. I've coached with Ty at some games as well, and Zane. And when you watch them, not only take what their knowledge, but then they're building on it and coming up with their own ideas, and you're like, oh, yeah, I never thought of it that way, or yeah, that game is evolving in their head, and you watch them make moves that maybe you wouldn't have made, but you see how it's going to play out, right? And that's almost more fun than you making the move, right?
yeah, I always said Sue and I would talk about all of our kids who were fortunate enough to all three play in college. I always say it's their journey. It's their journey. It's not my journey. It's their journey. They control it. They do what they want with it. It's fun, like you said, John, to just watch what they do and see how they make the decisions and then the whys behind it. And that's okay.
Well, let's talk pitching now.
Pitching time.
Pitching time.
Pitching time. All right, guys. I'll see you later. No.
There's just so much technology now. It's just mind blowing. And these pitchers, I feel like they can get better so much quicker, like so much more efficiently. They can add a new pitch or tweak this, like get a specific shape, and they can figure it out in, one season or in a month or in a week. And every off season, these pitchers are coming back. Oh yeah, now I throw a splitter. Oh yeah, now I throw a sweeper. They're showing up to spring training with all these additional things. With all of this technology and things that professional organizations are using to add to these pitchers' repertoires, how much of a balance is there with like also teaching them how to pitch? I know that's probably got to be pretty difficult kind of line to walk because it's so exciting to go on the track, man, and see all the numbers, and like it's got to be very enticing to just want to work on that. But I assume you also need to take it a step back and look at the charts and look at the situations of how the outing went itself, and the plan and the approach and all that. What is it like as a pitching coach today, because it has evolved so much over your career and it's always evolving? What is it like having to walk that line day in and day out?
Yeah, it's a great question, and from doing it too and watching it, like it is a fine line. If guys are coming strictly from facility situations in the off season at whatever facility that we all know are the top facilities out there, right? Like Driveline and Tread and whatnot. There are a lot of guys that I see are just facility pitchers. They can light the gun up, they can hit the metrics, they can do what they do. When it comes to sticking a batter in the box, having to manage the game that goes on around the mound, and what happens with decision making on the mound, that's way more than a metric. Certainly, at the pro level, it's one thing, but with Troy and what he's going to have to do with his pitching coach, who he really speaks so highly of, they're going to figure out, how things are have to play there, chasing the metric and being able to execute a pitch. I always tell our guys in pro ball, I mean, in double A with the Rays the last couple of years, and had a lot of guys go on to pitch in the big leagues, but I always told them, you can't ask what the metrics are on the iPad unless the ball was in the strike zone. And because they could say, oh yeah, that's the metric I'm chasing. I got to have 21 inches of sweep on that slider, but it bounced in the left-handed hitter's batter's box. Yeah, that's the pitch I want. Why? Nobody's swinging at that. I mean, it started out a ball a long time before, so
Right.
it is a balancing act. And once you understand that your stuff is developed to a certain point, now can I execute it? And so I think that's got to be innate within whatever level of the game we're talking about.
I think the still I guess I'm kind of old school. I never thought I was until recently when I see all these stats and numbers. I just appreciate a pitcher that goes out there and just owns the strike zone and owns the batter, right? It's more about attitude, right? Some of these pitchers get up there and you don't even want to get in the batter's box, right? Not because they throw 99 miles an hour, but because they know you. I just recently watched Steve, you love this, with Barry Bonds and Greg Maddux. Have you seen that clip before?
I have.
Where they kind of talk about the pitch sequence, and I love the process with both of them, right?
Yep. Yep. It's I mean, incredible how the perspective was that they were both trying to figure out what they were reading in the other person. What was that guy doing that dictated what my next move was going to be? And that's really what, guys do now. I always tell the guys when they get to double A, they have to do the 2 Bs. They got to read the body and the barrel. If they aren't reading the body and they aren't reading the barrel, then they aren't understanding what the pitch sequences should be. And because when you get to the big leagues, those guys, higher level hitters, are not afraid to strike out and strike out looking, because they're going to pick certain things based on educated guesses, based on sequencing, based on what they know the guy's arsenal is and what the percentages are. And they're going to say, I'm going to sit on this pitch. And if they don't get that pitch and they punch out looking at what we think is a ball right down the middle, you go, how did he not swing? Because he's thinking something completely different. Now, college guys, lower level minor league guys typically don't do that. I always say that, up to about A ball, if you throw the rosin bag at them, they'll swing at it because it's white and it's moving. It's just a different way you have to look at what's happening with a particular hitter.
Well, Steve or Zach, if you want to jump in a second, do it. But I'm going to kind of point this to Ty and Troy right now. Troy, I hope you're still a Tigers fan. But one of the things the Tigers have been able to do is take these guys, these players, right? And they're playing multiple positions. It's no longer he's the shortstop, he's the second baseman, he's our third baseman, he's our left fielder, right? They're interchangeable parts. And when Ty played, I think he played every position but shortstop, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I would show up to the field and oh, today's playing third base. Oh, today's in right field. Oh, he's starting the second game, right? And he's going to catch in the bullpen too, whatever it was. He was always doing something. And I thought that's a great skill to have. When you recruit players, Troy, is that what you're looking for? Are you looking for the most talented athletic players out there and then moving them around? Or are you looking for just a first baseman, just a third baseman?
Yeah, I mean, 1000% looking for guys that are athletic and versatile to play multiple positions. I mean, typically, a lot of times, we're going to recruit the middle of the field is kind of the way that at this level we look at it. So center fielder, shortstop, and catchers, right? And then kind of, if you feel like a shortstop can move to third or whatever, you can always kind of adjust that way. But yeah, I love when guys play multiple positions, multiple sports. I mean, anything that helps them be more athletic and not be, very, very one track focused. I think looking back on it, I wish I would have done that a little bit more as a player. I played third base, and that was kind of it. I caught a little bit, but I mainly played most of my time at third. And I think that when I talk to a lot of high school players and through their career process, I usually ask them, what other positions do you play? What else have you played? Because I think it is important to help, especially at this level. If you can hit, we can typically find a spot in the field for you in some capacity, as long as you're versatile and athletic enough to do it.
That doesn't change, right, Steve? If you can hit, you're playing.
Bottom line, production, offense, baby.
Ty, what are you noticing?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Troy. You just mentioned some high school kids. What would you tell some kids that maybe want to take that next step, that might be listening to this show right now? What kind of things should they be doing right now? Whether it's academic wise or athletic wise, what should those kids that dream to play college or pro be doing right now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll touch on the academic side first. I think that's one that a lot of young kids in high school especially don't really understand how important the academics are, because when you're looking at, go playing at the next level, especially if you're not going to be, at the Division I level, if you're anywhere D2, D3, all that, the academic money is sometimes, it's going to be a lot better than your athletic money. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is at this level. I mean, the difference between a 3.75 GPA and a 3.0 GPA is $7,000 for the student athletes that come to Tiffin, and I know that's pretty similar with some other teams in this conference. So academically is huge. I mean, you're just going to put yourself in a lot better position, financially, when you're looking at bottom line numbers in college, if you're taking your academics seriously. So that's I mean, probably number one is making sure you're doing that stuff. Because if if you struggle, and obviously there's a lot of great junior college options and things like that can now help, that maybe weren't as big maybe 10 and 12 years ago when I was in the recruiting process as it is now. But I still think if you want to go to a 4-year school out of high school, then you need to make sure that you're doing what you need academically. And then athletically, I would say the big thing that I tell a lot of guys is just the physicality, getting in the weight room and getting stronger is so important. I mean, now with the way that these rosters are, I mean, we have a couple guys on the Tiffin roster that are 22, 23 years old, and they've been in a college program for five years, and have been in a college weight room for 5 years. And so when you're an 18-year-old kid coming in, it can be challenging if you're not at that level of physicality. So I would say that's one of the big ones is making sure that you're getting in the weight room and getting stronger. I think that's one of the things that I would tell a young kid in high schools to start taking that really seriously, because that can really help a lot of different things.
Todd, that's a good question. I didn't expect you to bring up academics, but that's okay.
That's good.
No, I don't mean it in a negative way. Well, that's one of the things that, right, Ty, you're like going,
Come on,
I
I
don't
just
want to go to school
graduated.
for 2 more years. You did graduate, yeah. It took you a couple of years, but you graduated, right? Exactly.
Took me a decade.
Yeah, but Steve, like, kind of following the theme there, at the professional level, minor leagues. I mean, these are athletes. Every time I go to a game, I'm like, holy cow! There's, these guys are. I mean, top to bottom. I mean, they are physically fit and ready to go. They're athletes. I mean, even Tarek Skubal talks about being athletic as a pitcher, right? Athleticism seems to be the wave of the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of emphasis put on not just being in the weight room, but in organizations and for coaches to have a pretty good understanding of the efficiency of movement of the body and how the body is designed to move for that particular athlete. So yeah, it really is something that the more you watch these guys, it is impressive. But then again, I mean, even if you look at smaller guys, you don't think that the big guys are athletic, but the big guys are pretty athletic. But even some smaller guys, I mean, you would expect them to be more athletic but not have as much strength maybe. But there's power and speed and, all of those things combined. And then you add the intelligent aspect of it to, like what Troy was saying, with the intelligent side of playing the game is a big factor, I think, for being ultimately successful. There's a lot of guys that can play, like I say, there's a lot of guys that can play professional baseball. But are there a lot of guys that can play championship caliber professional baseball in whatever league you're in? Are you able to meet the requirements to be able to play at a championship caliber? And that goes for college, high school, whatever. Talent isn't all that is going to be the only thing needed.
Yeah, or the Yankees and the Dodgers would win every year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Their Nationals seem to squeeze one in here, like, 7 years ago, whatever it was, right? I mean,
How did that happen?
yeah, I mean, so.
Well, Zach,
Yeah.
you bounced in and out a little bit. I know you might have some connection issues over there, but is there anything you want to add before we wrap things up pretty soon?
Yeah, I want to ask Troy real quick about back in the day, going during those summers, going to hang out with Dad at the ballpark. What were kind of some of your favorite places that you went, as far as stadiums or towns experiences that you had during those years in the summertime when you would go hang out with your dad in the summer? Anything stick out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say, like, number one, our favorite was Missoula, Montana. He was with the Missoula Osprey for, I think, 3 years right now. 2 or 3 years you were there. That was the Diamondbacks affiliate at the time. We loved it there. We had so much fun. That was when I was, at middle school, so we were spending the whole summer out there mostly, and had a great time there. Loved that. Went on road trips with Dad. That was fun. I would say the second was probably Brooklyn, when he was with the Brooklyn Cyclones with the Mets. That was a pretty cool too. Got to do some fun things there, and enjoyed a lot of the trips there. So I would say that those two were kind of the two of my favorite spots. I really liked that. And I obviously loved getting on the bus and going on road trips with Dad. So that was always fun too. The road trips in Missoula were pretty long. I mean, we had some 8 to 10, 12, 14-hour trips at that point. Those were long trips, but I was in it for the long haul, so I was ready to roll.
Troy, could you imagine going to high school in Montana and playing a conference high school baseball game and getting on a bus for 6 hours to go play the next town over?
No, I mean, that it's insane out there. I mean, it's so cool. It's such a great, like, part of the country. But yeah, it is. The stuff's pretty spread out there. That's for sure. There's a lot of no man's land out there, we'll say.
It was funny with that being in Missoula. Todd Frazier, from St. John's, obviously, and drafted by the Reds. I'll never forget Troy sitting next to me. We were hitting, and Todd Frazier was playing shortstop. And here he is. I don't know, Troy, what were we, 13, maybe?
Yeah, I remember those
13.
too. Yeah.
And a ball was hit to the 6 hole, and Todd Frazier was going back to field it. And as the ball is bouncing toward the 6 hole, Troy says, well, now we're going to see if he's truly a first rounder or not. balls bouncing. Like, and wasn't that that was the question on Todd Frazier, right? Could he play shortstop or couldn't he? And so here he is at 13 evaluating. I'm going to evaluate this first rounder, whether or not he's truly a first rounder. I mean,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
it was hilarious.
That's great. Well, I loved Zach's question to Troy there. We should ask you the same thing. I mean, let's run down some of the. Hold on, let me look at this list here again. So you've been University of Michigan, University of Toledo, Tigers. We didn't talk about Tigers. I can't believe you're at Macomb Community College. That's funny. Rockies, Mets, Diamondbacks, Cubs. You coached the Montgomery Biscuits too.
Well, Montgomery is in the Rays system. That's AA. Yeah.
So you've been all over them. So tell us some of your favorite places.
The Dominican Republic. I don't know. I mean, I get asked that a few times by people. I mean, loved when I was with the Rockies in the big leagues at the end of the 19 season and then all of 20 during COVID. Obviously outside of it being COVID, but walking into Dodger Stadium, walking into so many awesome ballparks was fun. The best times were when I knew that my family were there. The other day we were in Bowling Green, or a couple months ago now, and the whole family was there. All the kids, their spouses, all the grandkids. We have 4 of them. Our youngest daughter said, "Dad, I think this is the first time that our family has been all together at the same ballpark since we were like 11 while you were there." So that was awesome. Watching Troy's son Tate hit and run around, and Jet, his other son, chase him, and Jovi, our granddaughter, is just a little bit behind Tate in age, and they're all running around on the field. That's what I enjoyed the most with our kids. When I was with the Tigers, the father-son game, Troy got to play in the father-son game, I think, as what, a 3-year-old? And our daughter was eating the infield dirt with Todd Jones's daughter. So, those are the best times. Those are the most fun.
It's way to wrap this up. We're talking about family, being a family podcast here, and that's a great way to end it. But we should give Ty one more chance. Ty, you have more questions that you want to ask?
Man, I feel like we could just talk all night with
I
you
know,
guys.
right? Exactly. Yeah.
No. I guess I got one kind of fun one for you, Troy. Going back on all those players you were just hanging out with and having breakfast with. Did you ever sneak in a few autographs, or was Dad like, "Hey, don't kind of asking for autographs while you're eating breakfast"? Like, how did that work out?
Great question.
That actually is a really good question. So yeah, my dad always said not to ask for autographs. Like that was always one thing he always said, like, hey, enjoy the experience with them, and like, don't ask for autographs because they get that all the time.
Yeah.
So I never did. I never got autographs. I didn't really get a whole lot from guys that I was with, but I feel like I remember the experiences with them more than I would like care about having their autograph now at this point. I'm not a memorabilia guy, so maybe if I was, I'd have a different answer. Yeah, I mean, he kind of always said like, "Hey, don't ask," and I
Yeah.
was cool. I was cool with that. So I never did. A couple guys like signed bats for me once in a while. Like I would have a couple things like that, but I never asked, and I think that those guys probably appreciated that and just kind of let like me just kind of hanging out and being one of the guys. Yeah, I didn't ever get any autographs, but
Yeah, that's cool.
Steve got him though, right, Steve?
yeah, probably.
I honestly, Sue's probably really happy that I didn't collect a bunch of autograph stuff like that. And I mean, obviously around so many unbelievable players, Pedro Martinez started out on the DL with me in 06 with the Mets, and I took care of him for, 3 weeks, and but I never asked for anything myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. All right, Zach, I guess we'll let you ask the last question since Ty got one in.
No, just want to say thank you to you guys for carving out the time because, you know, for us as a family, it's tough to get all 3 boys on with dad, like, with our schedules, and then for y'all, like, obviously being in the game and your crazy schedules as well, for the 5 of us to be able to connect tonight has been really awesome and special, and we just really appreciate you doing that for us tonight.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All
Go
right,
ahead, Troy.
Well, we'll have to stay in touch and have you guys back. Troy, we'll have to check in with you on how your season is going. We'll have to get Zane on with you because Zane's a pretty intense coach.
Yeah.
A very dedicated guy, spending a lot of hours at the field and recruiting all the time. So thank you both of you for being on the podcast. All right, Ty, why don't you tell people how to listen to the show if this is their first time or they want to come back?
Yeah, Big League Dreaming the podcast here on YouTube, of course, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We're Big League Dreaming the podcast. You can follow us on TikTok at Big League Dreaming. We're also on X at BLD Pod. That's at BLDPOD. We have episodes on Saturdays, so we hope to see you on the next one.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys.